Rozina Jaffer. Rozina is, as she's already said, a student who's been doing an advanced practicum with ECEBC. And so during her time with us, she's been exploring the notion of professionalism within the ECE field. And she's had a particular focus on students, so it's great to have so many students on the call this evening for this dialogue. And we've really enjoyed having Rozina with us. And I'm going to turn that over to Rozina now. Rozina.
Thank you very much for all of you being here to listen. I will just give you a little brief of this journey before I show you my presentation. I'm a student at Capilano University and trying to finish my degree undergrad, hopefully 2017. And as part of this program, I was doing an advanced practice practicum. And as I was pondering about my interest areas for this particular practicum, and having a dialogue with one of my professors, Violet Jessen, who is present here too, Violet, who's been my great mentor throughout this journey, I came across this article by Parker Anderson, who is a professional life coach who specializes in educational leadership coaching. And according to Anderson, there had been a decline in professionalism in North America. She mentioned how, among other professions, educators too were slipping away and neglecting to include the vital ingredient of professionalism in their daily working life. I became a bit curious about what professionalism really means and what were the views and ideas and values and tools that constituted the understanding of professionalism in early childhood education. As I embarked on this journey and peeked into the notion of professionalism, I came across the award-winning best-selling author Holly Alyssa Bruno, and it's one of her statements in her article, What You Need to Lead in an Early Childhood Program. And she says, the professionalism is more than just a 15-letter. And I became interested in measuring the attitudes about professionalism in our field of early childhood education. My curiosity of what professionalism really looked like in early childhood education led me to connect with ECEBC, which is the only professional organization representing the ECEs in the British Columbia. While working with ECEBC, I got an opportunity to contribute to their recently launched sector survey. And one of the questions as part of my contribution was about ECEs considered being the 5 most important qualities that define professionalism. I realized it was not an easy question to answer as I attempted myself, and I purposely chose to format it as an open-ended question, hoping it would encourage us to truly think what the word meant to each one of us. And analyzing the answers to this question was truly challenging. Keeping in mind the practicality of the limited time frame of my practicum, I focused mainly on the students' answers for this question and narrowed my focus of this whole inquiry mainly with the student ECEs. I hope that taking up such an initiative would contribute towards my own professionalism. I'd like to quote Anderson here once again, being willing to find out and share more with others is truly evidenced inside of professionalism. I also hope to create a dialogue with other members of the ECE community alongside the support of ECEBC, where we could eventually come together to re-evaluate our work as early childhood educators. And I'm really thrilled to be with all of you here today as part of this journey. Thank you so much to the ECEBC staff for allowing me this opportunity to be part of their team and help me grow. And my special thanks to Emily, the Executive Director of ECEBC, for all her support and encouragement from day one. I've attempted to put together my journey, my experience and findings in this little Pechakucha presentation, which I must say was quite a challenge for me, as I'm not the most technologically savvy person. I was given this challenge 2 days before my presentation was due at the end of my practicum. I've tried my best to distill the essence of my whole experience and put everything together in the 7-minute presentation. I hope you find it informative, and I hope it encourages a dialogue amongst all of us. So I'll put my presentation. How do we define professionalism? Are these children demonstrating professionalism by their attire? Is professionalism how you dress or how you appear in public, or is it more than that? Close your eyes and take a few moments to see what image of professionalism comes to your mind. If you think about professionalism in an early childhood sector, do you think of someone who is always smiling, someone loving, someone reliable, punctual, or someone educated? What else comes to your mind, I wonder? Does this image of ECEBC logo come to anyone's mind when thinking about professionalism? Did you know that this is the only organization that has been serving the early childhood profession since 1969, giving us an opportunity to come together and enhance our ability to be a strong voice for the profession? My quest to understand professionalism in ECE sector led me to connect with ECEBC. During my practicum with this professional body, I got an opportunity to meet various ECEs. My journey began at the ECEBC conference, following visits to different parts of the Lower Mainland, meeting with both ECE students and other educators. Upon embarking on this journey at the conference, I realized how valuable it was to meet so many learned people within our sector. There was a buzz about the importance of professional learning and collaboration through social media. I took this opportunity to connect with several students present to measure their attitudes about professionalism. Some of the words describing professionalism included lifelong learner, respect for family, children and co-workers, honesty, advocacy, positive guidance, and knowledge, etc. When asked about ECEBC membership, some couldn't be a member because of the cost, while others had just heard about it. My journey then led me to the Advocacy Forum for Students at VCC. An interesting point made here by Geeta Chad was on how professionalism and advocacy were not at opposite ends of the spectrum. For Sharon Gregson, advocacy enhances professionalism. Overall, for me, the forum endorsed advocacy to be a crucial part of professionalism. During the professional session at this forum, some student responses to the question on professionalism included being knowledgeable about child development, supporting families, being enthusiastic, and open to learning. Interestingly, there was hardly any mention in the importance of critical reflection, listening, or advocacy. As I continue pondering about professionalism in ECE, Geeta Chad comes to my mind. According to her, we translate our attitude and knowledge in our everyday journey of skills. Her acronym, ASK, highlights to me how when both knowledge and attitude work in synergy, our professional skills are enhanced. Connecting with students, I encourage them to complete the ECEBC sector survey. While analyzing the responses on professionalism, I found that out of 1,260 completed surveys, 129 were identified as students. Interestingly, reflecting on the dynamics of students' age group posed a question about the declining value of lifelong learning. This picture demonstrates a high importance towards competence, knowledge, open-mindedness, and respect as part of being a professional. Caring, compassion, and integrity, which according to Bruno are key to early childhood professionalism and quality, are also recognized by students' responses. Could these qualities be measured by any standardized testing? According to Bruno, as the early childhood field increasingly values emotional intelligence, its professional standards must encompass this knowledge. Revised standards clarify how we understand quality, and as we clarify how we understand quality, our professional standards change. This is the chicken or the egg dilemma in defining quality. My curiosity about professionalism in ECE led me to pick the brains of one of my instructors, Tia Smith at Capilano University. She made me see the importance of mentorship in our field and how she was blessed with that, and how the values and bars set on professionalism by her mentors always stayed with her. In my analysis of student responses on professionalism, I encountered the question on ECEBC membership and realized that 89% of those students were not members and 4% of students were former members. Analyzing the reasons for non-membership showed the cost to be the biggest deterrent, followed by the lack of awareness. I encountered similar responses by established ECs within the field. Full membership costs under $10 and for students under $8 per month, which typically is a visit to a coffee shop. What value do we attach to our profession? If we sincerely consider ourselves to be professionals, why are we not part of the only organization that represents us? How can we advocate for our profession? How do we move forward alone? Why is it, like Coffin says, that ECs seldom consider themselves as part of something bigger than their own individual programs? Should membership in ECEBC become mandatory for us to practice in our field, as it is in other professions? What is this missing piece of puzzle here? Why is it that so many ECs do not have any idea of what ECEBC is? Do we even consider ourselves as professionals? According to Coffin, a profession is granted autonomy as a field of practice, but this independence is coupled with certain responsibilities. What are these responsibilities? Feeney's research indicates various factors which makes a field a profession, such as prolonged training, specialized body of knowledge and expertise, recognition as the only group that can perform tasks, and so on. How many of these criteria do we as ECE as a field meet? If not all, how can we do so? Feeney says, diversity and inclusiveness are among the core values that bind us philosophically. If so, should practitioners not meeting academic criteria but are incredible educators of children be excluded? How do we answer such questions? How do we then define professionalism? Bruno says professionalism is more than just a 15-letter word. Chandler adds, professionalism is a fluid experience. So what now? What's next? How will our journey in professionalism move forward? It is time that with ECEBC as the flagship, ECEs take accountability in becoming the change agents in defining professionalism in the sector. Let's join hands and step up to the challenge. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Rozina.
Rozina, you just made a great point about the cost as opposed to the month-to-month, because I pay month-to-month for 3 different memberships that would be cheaper if I paid all at once, but I couldn't afford it. Like, I actually think that you really hit on a really key point of why more people or more early childhood educators aren't members, because not everyone has $150 a month, but we do have.
Yeah.
We do have, I can't remember what you said, $8 a month or something like that?
I think it's like for students it's under 8 and for regular membership it's under 10 if I'm not. Emily can correct, or any CBC staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is approximately the cost, which, you know, sadly a lot of us do go and spend in other things. So I don't know, I was kind of, it was interesting point talking, you know, why we don't think of the importance of being a member and valuing our own body, the only body that represents us. So.
Yeah, and the second point that I wanted to raise, I really liked that your second or third last graphic that you included about what professionalism means in other fields, and the only phrase that I caught was like being the only person able to do the job, something along those lines, like being the only person with the skills, and that's something that I really come up against a lot. And I'm not against family childcare, and I'm not against nannies at all.
No, right.
At the same time, the presence of family childcare and nannies and sort of introduces that element of people who've always liked children and always naturally been good with children. I mean, it's an interesting dynamic because there are people who are naturally good with children. I would hope that everyone here hopefully maybe had that ability. But at the same time, what does the value of it, what does education bring then? And I noticed that you also said that in professionalism, you didn't see critical thinking, you didn't see this sort of mention of advocacy, and I think that those two pieces really play against each other.
I think those are vital because, you know, if we are not going to advocate for our own profession, who else is? And kind of let me think that I was curious, like how do we as EC, what do we believe is our profession? Are we professionals or not? I mean, let's just something seriously to consider. And I welcome a dialogue, whoever wants to give their thoughts on that, because I mean, honestly, there is no set definition of professions. It's an ongoing dialogue, and I would love to hear other thoughts on it.
Hi, Rozina, it's Dawn. I was just wondering if there was something as you collected all your information, if there was something that stood out for you that changed the way that you look at things, if there was that big aha moment for you.
I think there's lots. First of all, honestly, having the time with Emily in interviews, particularly, I was fortunate that she gave me time during my practicum to just sit with me for quite a bit of time and gave me an insight on how much ECEBC is really doing. And I had no clue, in all honesty, until I embarked upon this myself. And so yes, like just what I was really kind of like surprised was how many ECs do not actually know what ECEBC is, sadly. I mean, it was shocking to me. And being a member or not member comes secondary. Not knowing what your only professional body is was surprising, and made me wonder what could we all do to, advocate for our profession and this body and come together, because that's the only body representing us right now. So that was for sure. And also many were not aware of the $10 plan. So that's another thing that was quite surprising for me. Yeah, I think it's kind of made me more like, sparked in me more about how I myself should be working towards, advocating for all of this. So this is all a journey for me. It's just begun, and I hope it'll continue with all of you to grow.
Thanks, Rozina. I see a message in there from Sean Nygren, our Member Services and Engagement Coordinator, and she just wanted to point out that the monthly membership payments range from $7.50 to $9.58 depending on the membership type. So thanks for that, Sean. And has asked, I wonder how pedagogical narration might help us to reevaluate our work together. I wholeheartedly agree that educators should belong to ECEBC and that it is reasonable for this to be mandatory.
I think I agree. That I feel that it is one of the ways of kind of making that happen. It would be nice if people would just willingly want to do it. So, being a member.
Making sure that that classrooms are documented, that people see the learning that we do. And sometimes we forget to document what we do and why it's important, and to remind ourselves. We almost need to go and have that, telling the story of the children, but also telling the story of us, and reminding us and encouraging us along the way of what we do and why it's important, and so that not only can we see it, the staff around us see it, and keep that encouragement level up, and I think just keep us focused and keep us excited about what we do.
Totally. I think I agree, like it just makes the whole thing visible, the learning visible as well. And it's definitely would be a great tool to have, to promote this.
Yeah, I just had a comment kind of going back to talking about making ECEBC mandatory for educators. And while I think that's a great idea, one thing that I myself kind of see in our field, and it kind of goes with this, is like a lot of the staff that I work with, or people that I work with, I feel like aren't necessarily even looking for those opportunities. So even though, let's say, it would be mandatory, I feel like it would be better exposure of everything that you guys do, but it wouldn't necessarily mean more people are using it. So I think one thing that I'm kind of looking for is how to encourage more ECEs to see themselves as leaders that are accountable and that are change makers and advocates for children.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that the fact that we have a one-year program or a one-year certificate requirement in British Columbia attracts new either new members of Canada or people who are just looking for a career change that is a little bit quicker. And so people get into the field because they need a job. And it's not, sometimes I really resist this idea of like the early childhood educator as this passionate giving of time and giving of money kind of identity. But at the same time, there's some truth to it that, you know, you really shouldn't be in the field with children unless you do have some passion for the field, in my opinion. And so I think moving towards that 4-year degree will automatically increase this professionalism. And I know through conversations with Kathleen Kuhlman at Capilano University that she's, you know, that, for example, leadership positions in early childhood education, like outside of the field, like decision-making positions, require a bachelor's degree. So how then are early childhood educators supposed to feel tangibly like leaders when they know that they can't even qualify for leadership positions unless they go back to school?
Well, but great comments by everyone. I'm just wondering also, I mean, the thing is that, you know, when we meet with our advisory committee, we're always, you know, we hear the same refrain about there's not enough educators out there. How do we, you know, where are they all? And I think we've got, you know, a couple of things that are going on that are really sort of creating a problem in the sense that, you know, that we want more qualified educators out there. We want educators who have critical, you know, critical thinking that can do work that, you know, that can be valued. And yet, on the other hand, we have this kind of system where, was it Ali? Were you the mentioning about the 1-year certificate, etc.? Was that you?
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, you know, about then, you know, about how people, you know, perhaps are looking around for something that is really quick, and so do we get the right people in the field that do have those intentions of wanting to be able to work with children and families in a meaningful way. But again, there's that other thought also about accessibility to employment as well. I mean, there's a lot of things that are pulling at this, and I don't have an answer or anything, but these are things that we can be aware of, and how do we find ways so that we can be able to, you know, improve the situation for our field, for our profession.
I also wonder, this is Emily here, I also wonder too, like I think these are such amazing points, but I also wonder about looking at these traditional ways that we see ourselves as early childhood educators also has to be addressed. And going throughout the province, you know, we hear the same kind of language, the same kind of story of that we're not valued enough, we're not this enough, we're just not enough. And I wonder how does that story change? Because I think if that story could change within ourselves and how we see ourselves, and maybe that is through that documentation, like seeing ourselves in the important role we have, seeing ourselves in leadership capacities like we never have before. If we change that way of viewing ourselves, would have a huge impact on the way that we traditionally work with children and how that changes as well.
No, this is, I guess my thoughts have also been flowing as everybody else's comments are coming in, but I think I feel like when I think about the idea of professionalism in our field, one of the biggest challenges is to raise our profile as professional early childhood educators in the eyes of the public, the general public. That's very, like I get comments a lot about, you know, oh, you're a glorified babysitter, or my child would be better off at home with their grandparents. And so that's seems to be a very common way of thinking about early childhood education. So how can we, or what can we do to advocate for this kind of change in thinking, so that, like, I mean, I see it as a political thing. It's from a policy level, there's a lot of change to be done, but it's so overwhelming and huge.
Yeah.
That where do we start? Where do we even begin? And I know part of it is membership in organizational bodies like the ECEBC, but then what? Right?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I think that ECEBC has taken on is our commitment, like the development that we have with ECEBC and the Coalition of Child Care Advocates have developed the child care plan, and really the plan has the elements to elevate the profession itself, everything that was in there. Obviously it does support children and families so that they can access affordable, high-quality child care, but we need to build upon that quality. And so all those elements are there to protect and to lift up the sector through education, through wages, through professional recognition. And so the more that we can get that in the political landscape, to get every person that's running in the next provincial election, no matter what party they represent, to know the importance of that in each community, that's when we're going to make real changes. And we've seen that, but we can't lose that momentum and lose that support, particularly coming from the early childhood educators, because we do have that connection, like with families, like no other sector does.
Thanks, Emily. And I know that this is just the beginning of what's going to be continuing dialogue and discussion. We've been invited to present to a group of students at Northern Lights College, and so I think this is a great start on some really big issues, and we really look forward to continuing this conversation. Sarah, from a Vancouver point of view, I just met with a group of ECE teachers last week, and another challenge I see is the cost of living. Most of us are working 2 jobs trying to survive on such poor wages, so I think people are trying to survive and not always thinking about professionalism. Sarah, feel free to jump in if there was something more.
Just literally met with teachers last week, and I think people are just tired and trying to survive with, rent and everything. That professionalism is something that's not always on the forefront of what their teachers mind. I know from Vancouver, I'm not speaking for every other province, but I do think colleges, maybe because Rozina, I think, has dealt with a lot of students, it's worrying that a lot of students are not aware of ECEBC or the $10 a day, so I'm not sure what's happening with our ECE programs, but that does concern me a little bit. So maybe colleges need to step it up a bit on that, maybe get instructor training more on ECEBC or how to make it more highlighted within their programs. But Rozina, great job. It's a really good conversation starter, so thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I
just wanted to say my introduction to ECEBC started as a student at Northern Lights College. I'm not sure if it was our second practicum. In lieu of purchasing a textbook, we became members at ECEBC. And that, to me, was an incredible start, because becoming connected as a student, it opened a lot of doors, and I mean, I just think that that's a great way to get students involved. I don't know, yeah.
Thank you. And some of these discussions that are coming up around post-secondary and students are going to be part of a discussion that's happening with the post-secondary committee in the very near future. So thank you for this, and we'll keep track of all these ideas. Cindy, I see your hand is up.
Great. Thank you. Rozina, I just want to thank you very much for presenting today and starting the conversation. And I think, how important is that to create a space, ECEBC being able to put out the webinars and
than seeing a student from a program speak about something to all of us. So, you know, as an instructor at an early childhood program, I think all of us at our college take it very seriously about how to advance the field. I also think there's opportunities for us to grow and learn as instructors too. You know, how can we keep it alive ourselves? You know, what's my professional responsibility as an instructor and an early childhood educator to keep the profession alive within our instructors and within, you know, then carrying out through students. So, you know, I certainly know that we've taken advantage of opportunities to help students to become aware, and we'll continue to do that. But I would hate to see us get complacent around it. So, you know, I really appreciated your presentation. I applaud your courage to work with technology when it's a bit new to you. And I'm just really looking forward to continued conversations about it. You know, there's been so many points. One of them, you know, when we're talking about the cost of it all, really, is it the cost or is it a value statement? And I think, Rozina, you brought that up, right? Is, you know, how do we value the profession, and how do we see or find ways to see that, you know what, this is a priority in my working life, and how do I achieve that? You know, it's a bit of a stark PowerPoint slide when you see a cup of coffee sitting next to, you know, the membership sign. So, you know, but a good reminder to really think. It's, I wonder, I mean, not in any way discounting the situation that we have in terms of low pay and so on, but is it really about the cost when there's an alternative in all cases, or is there a way we can afford it somehow, you know, under a monthly rate or an alternative way? So anyways, thank you so much for the presentation. I'll be thinking about it and how to take that forward with our faculty and out into the courses. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Talk about, like Emily was saying, where do we begin? And then people, a lot of times people have these thoughts of, you know, what can I do, and I don't have the time. And these kind of thoughts often overwhelm us to the point where we think we are ineffective. And like with me myself, like I'm in a center that I'm often working by myself, and to be able to go out there to advocate or to encourage people, it does seem that I have to find more time in my life to do that. But what I've realized in the last while is that we have the public coming right into our centers. And I thought, okay, how am I going to get them to understand who I am? And like we were talking about the pedagogical narrations, I would take the time and share these narrations that, you know, I don't put a whole lot on, but I put one on, and I try to make sure that every parent has a chance to look at it and discuss it with me, even if it's just 5 minutes. And every single parent that I've had a chance to talk to about, you know, the insight that educators get from a documentation of what the child is doing, the look that they give you is totally different. They look at you as if, yeah, I wouldn't have known that if you hadn't told me that. And from then on, that parent is looking at you way more so as a professional early childhood educator, as opposed to, you know, just an educator or just a care provider. And I thought every time I feel like I'm overwhelming myself with all of these thoughts, I'm going to focus back on these parents, because we want them to be supporting the 10 a day. We want them to be supporting us. And then we could become a stronger voice. And I think once we have people that are supporting us, we also can feel much more, what's the word, professional in what we're doing. It's a back and forth kind of a relationship. But then we could also do that with educators that we do meet at different environments, right? We want to be able to I do anyway. I want to make them feel that they don't have to be a superhero. All they need to do is think about their circumstance and know that there's people around them that will support them. And then you feel that you have somebody that will support you. Oh.
Thanks,
Anyway,
Natalie.
I've given this a whole lot of thought.
Thank you. And I'm hoping, although we're going to bring the discussion to a close for the moment, that you'll continue having these conversations with your colleagues in your local communities and maybe even on Facebook. We can start some dialogue there to continue this discussion, because it will be just the beginning here this evening. And I've just flashed up a slide that may be a little bit difficult for you to read, but this was something shared by Northern Lights College, and it was one of their student advocacy projects that I thought fit very nicely with this evening's discussion. And I'm going to turn us over to Emily Mleczko, who's going to bring a couple of key updates from ECEBC, and then we'll also have just a quick update from Sean Nygren. Emily?
Great. So I'll keep this really quick, but I did want to highlight some of the work that ECEBC is doing, particularly looking at professionalism and how we build that up. So most recently ECEBC, and you heard from Mia today, we are really looking at providing high quality education after early childhood educators have finished their early childhood certificate courses or bachelor's or diploma courses. So how do we keep on building on that education? We're looking to always building the leadership capacity of early childhood educators through a variety of opportunities, whether it's volunteerism or working or taking professional development specifically for developing the leadership in early childhood educators. We are also making sure or ensuring that early care and learning is a top election item for this upcoming provincial election, and this is something that we're hoping with the support of early childhood educators that throughout the province they bring this to the table within their own communities, that we need to bring this as a top priority. Those people running for office do need to hear it from many, many people. As well as ECEBC is responding to legislative changes such as the license to certificate to practice. We've had a lot of feedback in how people or early childhood educators aren't happy about that change, so bringing that to the attention, as well as the most recent announcement of some changes to that legislation, and looking at the particularly looking at the outdoor spaces. So now there's a requirement that you only need to have 6 square meters where it used to be 7, and there's absolutely no evidence that supports having smaller playground spaces is in the best interest of children. So looking at how do we bring those issues to the table. And then just the opportunities for continuing education, so that we can increase the number of early childhood educators out in the sector and moving people that have their EC assistance and supporting them to become a fully certified early childhood educator much faster within the process. And last of all, one exciting announcement for us, or exciting thing that's going to be happening in the next week actually, where Sean and I are leaving on a road trip with so this is the third leg of a provincial road trip, and this time we will be stopping in Williams Lake, Quesnel, Prince George, Smithers, Terrace, and Prince Rupert. And we'll continue this dialogue around professionalism and what that means to early childhood educators, and how do we change that view within ourselves and within community.
It's Sean here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the new Membership and Engagement Coordinator for ECEBC. And I really enjoyed listening and hearing everyone tonight. Your thoughts and stories are really helping inform the work that I do, and A lot of things are reminiscent with what we heard in the recent sector survey, and so I can tell that there's a lot of frustration around professionalism and lack of knowledge of ECEBC and the value of the profession. But I can also, you know, really feel the passion for the work resonating. So I'm, you know, as part of my role, I'm really interested in telling the story of the educator. So we're thinking of ways to do that, and we have been doing that. I wanted to let everyone know that I'm going to be taking over the member calls, and the next one is going to happen November 17th, and I'm going to focus on getting involved with your local branch and why you should connect with your local branch. I think this is a good topic to you know, branch off tonight's call, and along with Emily and I going on our road trip, we're going to be in touch with a lot of members, and we're visiting 4 different branch meetings on our trip. So we're going to be attending one in Prince Rupert, Prince George, the Bulky Valley, and the Terrace branch. So also on the call, we're going to be looking, or I'll be looking at inviting some branch members or branch executives as guest speakers to talk about activities at their local branch and what's helping them be really successful. So mark your calendars, November 17th, and I'll be in touch with more information as I pull it together a little bit more. And it's really been great listening to everyone tonight. Thank you.